Hello, friends. Thank you for joining His Love is Power podcast. I'm your host, Ken Porter. His Love is Power podcast is about encouraging men to be in community with other men that want to grow in relationship with Jesus. Why do we feel this is so important? Well, because God's word tells us in Hebrews 10, 24, and 25, and let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. You see, we are created to live in community. This podcast is about people sharing their stories of coming to know and follow Jesus, but also about how being in community with other followers of Jesus has changed their lives. Please join us in this adventure as we spur each other on towards love, good deeds, and encourage one another in Jesus. Jim Borders, welcome to His Love is Power podcast. Thank you for being here, man.
I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to this. We've been we've been talking about doing this for a long time. It's like life just gets in the way, and it's like I'm glad we finally, got going.
Absolutely. You and I have been friends for quite a while. You've been part of Saturdudes for quite a while, and so we're going to talk about that this evening and just have some stuff to share. But I've got something I want to share with you first, and so I'm going to show you a picture. And when I show you this picture, I'm curious about. Oops, hang on here. I'm curious about what comes to mind for you. Hang on, let me. It
doesn't put me in a compromising position now, does it?
It might. No. So I'm going to put it over here. Okay, let's see if I can get this, try to share this picture. There it is. Okay. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah. I love that picture. That is such a good picture. Gosh, I think I had more hair back then.
I think we all did. I was covering mine up with hats back then.
Oh, yeah. That's the group. I love that.
That is the group. That
Yes.
is, the only thing that's not in focus is Kiona.
I know.
She must have been moving and we didn't get a good focus on her. That was the last week she was alive. We knew we were going to put her down, and brought her into Dudes that Saturday prior.
Oh man, how long ago was that?
So that was
8 years ago?
On October 13th. It would have been 7 years ago.
Wow. Yeah, 18.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that brings out good memories. Those are, remember sitting in that Sunday school room, kids room. I think we're in the kindergarten room. We graduated from the cry room.
Yeah,
and
right.
We made it up to kindergarten.
Yeah, for sure. What strikes you when you look at that? What really kind of comes to mind for you?
Awesome group of brothers. It's like guys I can rely on. I love that. That's just, and it's just, we're always, a lot of us still get together. Only a few guys that, I think we're all still going, still part of the group. So, yeah, it's to me, it's just what strike that's my family, man. Those are my brothers.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
100%. 100%. Yeah. That was that we, what's so cool about that is that was the band of brothers back then, and they were all there. It wasn't very typical for all of us to be there, but
No.
As far as I can remember back, 8 years ago or so, that was pretty much our group. And so that was pretty cool. And it was special to kind of share Kiona. You guys all knew her because you knew me and stuff, but to just bring her in on that day and knowing that we're going to put her down in a week. So.
No, that was good.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
So what an awesome picture. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. I thought I like when I can, if I start things off with a picture and memory kind of thing. And there's some other ones that if I would have had a little more thoughtful time to grab, there's ones of us out cutting wood together and doing those kind of things that we did with the dudes early on and for a long time, right? Moving people. There's pictures of us moving people and splitting wood and stuff like that too. So
Yeah, I didn't know you had those pictures. I remember going out and doing it. I was too busy, doing stuff. And but yeah, that's cool that you got those photographs.
yeah, yeah,
And there's a lot of lessons, and it's interesting. We can get into that later, but yeah, there are a lot of lessons that I've learned, you know, just watching, doing things with all you guys, and just yeah, some really good times. So
absolutely, absolutely. Well, I'm gonna start off um, just by uh, asking you just to share your story in Christ. What does your walk look like? How did you find Christ? How did you come to know him and kind of what does your walk look like with him? And so I'll just throw a
we've talked about it before, um, and there's a lot of similarities, you know, in it. And it's, some of, the other dudes, it's like they've got some great stories of how they came to Christ and some stuff. And for me, it's kind of just a slow, well, I've always, I can't recall a time where I didn't know God. I know him differently today. Um, and, talk about that relationship that I have today. But I mean, growing up, I mean, I grew up in a, great, down in Southern California, and good family, no issue. We had some issues. Everybody's got issues, um, but it's I remember I I I don't honestly know how my parents were brought up, other than I know I'm pretty sure my mother came from Methodist, my father, I think maybe Presbyterian, I'm not positive, but we went to Lutheran church. I
interesting.
think because it was closest. And so I don't think there was a Lutheran in the family. So, but we decided to go there, and honestly, I don't know when we stopped. Couldn't tell you when. I mean, I thought it was before, I got into junior high. Um, and, but then I noticed I found my Bible from being a kid once, not too long ago, and it was from 77. So I was just in seventh grade.
Okay.
And and I was thinking, oh, I opened it up, and it's like, I don't know what my parents were thinking. They bought me not an old book, but old King James version. Holy, I couldn't read it. It had, and I'm not talking to you. Look at it today. It's nothing like that. It was these, thous, ye's, thouest. There was a worshipeth, a sheweth. What are you thinking? How in the world am I? It's like I'm not doing great in English as it is, and now you expect me to read this?
My first Bible that was given to me was given me by my grandma Odom, and I still have it. It's right over here on my bookcase, and it's Old King James. And same thing. I remember as a kid trying to read it, and
Yeah, no.
yeah, I could. It was undecipherable to me, and remember just struggling with it. It's like I don't know what these words are, what they're supposed to mean, and it was a huge, you know,
Oh yeah. It's
struggle.
yeah, it's like, but I remember trying to read it, and they at some point they got another big fat one, and I'll be honest, I kept it for whatever reason. I don't know if my sister's ever read it, but it's like I wanted to read it, and I don't know where that came from. I honestly don't. I mean, it came from God put it in my heart, and I wanted to read. But I could never get past Leviticus. I could never really get into Leviticus too much. I'd get to there. Honestly, I swear I tried going through it, and I'd get to Leviticus, and I was like, I'm done. Maybe a year later I'd pick it up again, and I'd start at the beginning and try to work my way through. But I mean, but that was kind of, and so I've always had that, a desire to know. And honestly, it's like I've prayed since I can remember to God. I mean, it's like go to bed, you pray. And I remember I'd talk to him in my prayers, pray for other people. And I don't know where that came from. I honestly don't. I mean, I don't recall my mom or dad coming up and praying with me. We said grace when we ate dinner.
Okay.
That was it. That was, I mean, that's all I can recall.
But you just
And
inherently knew
yeah,
that I had to talk to God. You had to go to bed at night. It's like, I got to talk to God.
I honestly don't know where that, I don't know where that came from.
Is that
And
still a practice of yours, sleep before you go to bed?
not so much anymore. I mean, absolutely in the morning. I mean, it's a little different. I have to start my day that way, and
Yeah.
it's phenomenal. I am trying to do more of an examine at night and reflect back, and there's it's not as regimented, and I hate that word, but it's not as fixed, and something I
Yeah.
do every night. But it's like, yeah, so it's like I don't know where that came from, and then but it's interesting how the impact that the neighborhood had on me, because there was a bunch of guys. They're all my age. I mean, there were probably eight of us on the street, and I remember one mom praying over us when we had a sleepover. Remember, and I don't even know what religion he was. I don't remember him ever going to church, but his mom prayed over us. And then there were the Baptists across the street and a couple houses down. I go to church with them every now and then. There's the Catholic family down the street, go to church with them. And so I mean it was kind of a whole mix of different religions. And I'd probably say it was more in high school than when things started to change, because then I started dating a gal and she was Pentecostal. And that was different, you know. And they did things a whole lot differently. And I mean, but it really opened my eyes up to, a different way of communicating with God and something different, a different aspect of them. And so, that was um another learning. And that was towards the end of high school where I kind of started learning that. But I mean, like I said, it's just during my childhood, there was just this need. I remember watching a televangelist. It probably wasn't the best thing, but every now and then just I feel like I needed it, be at church or do something. And so I mean it kind of went that way for a long time. Um, out of high school, um, before going to college, there was this desire. Even when I broke up with her, I had this desire to continue going on to the church that she introduced me to. It was really good. And then just kind of met some other folks through, Carrie, my wife. And so it's always been kind of a presence in and out of my life. And
When were you baptized?
not Avenue Christian Church. So we'd gotten married. Um, and I'm so blessed to have done that. It was going to Knott Avenue Christian Church. I have no idea how I wound up there. I think we'd moved back from where we were going to college, and I was looking for something, but I just wound up there. And it was a great church. Really enjoyed going there, and I ended up getting baptized there. And
How old were you then?
let's see here, probably 29, 28, 29
Okay.
when I got baptized there. I don't know if I don't recall getting baptized when I was young. Don't know if they did or not. I don't remember that. But yeah, no, went there. Um, and, uh, and that was good. That was a good time. Um, Good timing. And I think, it was one of those things where God placed that in my life and led me. And and that's one of the things that, you know, the word I've used ever since I kind of got, hooked up with the dudes and really kind of learned a lot more. But the relentless pursuit of my heart, he has chased me. I mean, and there have been, and he has always been there for me, chasing after me, um, and taking care of me. And, it was at that time that I think I probably, that's about the time. I know it was at the time prior to when we had kids. And pretty soon thereafter, we got pregnant, and we had twins, and she gave birth to our two kids. And one of them didn't survive. They were both early. And and one of them, our daughter Brianna, she was with us for I can't really recall how long. It was just it seemed like forever going through that. But but we eventually had to make a decision on, to keep her on life support or not. Um, so we let her go. She passed away. And I bring not, and the reason Not Avenue Christian Church was such an impact in my life at that point was they were there for me. They taught me what community was like a little bit.
Okay.
And through that, I was able to reach out to them and they were there for me. And it really taught me, and there's not much you can say in those times to people, but their presence was great. But even more so, it was right after we had lost her. I remember just laying in bed, just grief stricken. And it was at that moment, in that time, where I felt the presence of God like I've never felt before. And the presence was him just having hold of me and being held by him. It was just, I don't know how I could ever have done that without him. I don't know how. And it was through that church that, he led me to that point. They were the ones who gave me support, that helped me grow in that time in my faith. And had it not been for them, I don't know what I'd have been like. I don't know if I would have been able to, what my walk with God would have been like after that. And if I would have just, at that point said, I'm done with this, and never gone back. But they led me through it. They helped me walk, and just then being present with God in the moment and knowing that he was there for me, grieving with me at the same time. I can't explain that. It's something I always look back on and think, know that he is there for me 100% of the time, even when it's heartbreaking like that. And it's like I said, so to me, that was probably the biggest, one of the biggest pivotal moments of in my walk with God. That moment.
There's just so much there, Jim. It's just one, known you for a long time, I've never heard that story and fully like that. And I just appreciate you sharing that so much. And then the other thing is that the kind of the way that you shared it is that God knew you were going to need a community. God knew that
Yeah,
you were going to need good Christian people around you in a time of need. And grew you, and he created that community around you. And that's why we want to talk today too, is just how important community is. And then finally, kind of just the one-on-oneness of God ultimately in your pain, coming to you very personally, right? That's what he does. It's like he doesn't leave us alone. He doesn't tell us, "Hey, you're not going to have pain. You're not going to have," no, he doesn't promise that at all. But he says whatever we are going through, he will be there with us.
yeah.
That is awesome.
It's and I mean, they spoke into my life, um, and taught me along the way in that moment, in those handful of weeks. They just taught me what God is like. And I couldn't tell you what they told me. I know they were there for me. They encouraged me, they didn't tell me everything was going to be okay. Um, but it was, like I said, and that's the one thing. Um, like I said, they were there for me. But I mean, that's what I mean. It's like, yeah, God led me, and he made sure that I had that community around me at that time, because I, my parents weren't, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I love my parents,
Yeah.
but they were going through their own, you know, trying to, going through their own grief and processing it themselves. It was the only time I've ever seen my dad cry. And even then, he didn't stick around. I think he just went off to the chapel at the church, which I think is the only other time I remember him being at a church. But it was, yeah, to me that it was tremendous how, again, how God just pursued me relentlessly and put these things into my life, these people into my lives at the times when he knew I'd need it, And so, I mean, it goes, but then from that point, in dealing with it, I didn't deal with it well. I mean, we've talked before. I mean, I deal with things, I just shove it down and, you know, get up and move and continue on. And that's not always healthy. And it resurfaced in my life later. Um, in another great story, maybe we'll get to, but it's, so at that point, we stayed down in Southern California a little bit longer, and eventually we moved up here to, up to Gig Harbor. And and at that point, I mean, I remember somebody recommended, going to Chapel Hill, recommended Chapel Hill, and so I went there. So got involved in that, and that's where I met a lot of you guys.
So
That was later.
did you start going to Chapel Hill as soon as you moved to Gig Harbor, kind of?
I'm trying to think. I think I think I started going here probably around, let's see, that was 98. I'd probably say around 2000,
Okay.
a couple of years after I got up here maybe. And that was a great church, but it's like life life happens, we have one kid, we have Robert, we have our other daughter Kyla. She comes along. That was still back in California, but work comes along and life comes along and all of a sudden and really I'd say my walk with God through, kind of from the beginning to then, it's kind of hit and miss, but it's like always a sense of like, I got to go to church. I really ought to. And so it looked like an EKG if you track my involvement and
Same.
all it was just show up, don't really connect with anybody. Every now you kind of see the same people all the time. How you doing? Oh, I'm doing well and all that. And, you know,
Right.
sermon's over, up out the door, head home, come back next Sunday and do it. And so it was kind of up and down. Um, and then, I noticed, and it started, he is probably, and it kind of went that way for a while, started taking the kids, to church, tried, um, but I'd probably say it was around, see, that would have been around 13. Yeah, that'd have been around, and I'd probably say around 2009, 2010. I mean, I'm busy with work and I'm traveling all the time with work, and I've got jobs in Texas and New Orleans and other places that we're going to. And um, so I'm not home a lot. But like I said, it's just creeping down and down and down to kind of my involvement um in the church, but it's not filling me up. It's not doing anything for me. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I just felt I needed to. I continue to pray to God sporadically, but eventually, not much. And I just remember there was this is like I'd say the pivotal moment for me. And that was, I don't know what it was. It was in like probably September, if I remember correctly, where summer's over and they're going to start some of the fall programs and all that. And I just remember, just God telling me, it's like, you need to get into church. And I just have this overwhelming just memory of him telling me you need to go. And I still, and I remember driving along the way to church and just this sense of I've got something for you today. And it's like, okay, and it was just I have to go. So I head into church and Mark's talking about they're gonna start, Pastor Mark's talking about starting some, a group, a new study for men. Golly, what was it? Oh, something to do with men, masculinity or something. But
Right. It was like, and it was meeting on like Tuesday or Wednesday nights, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. It was going to be Wednesdays. It was going
Yeah,
to
it
be
was
Wednesdays. We're all
Wednesday.
going to meet on a Wednesday, and
Yep.
and I remember, well, I can't do Wednesdays. I can't. I'm gone in the week. How's this going to work? And then he's like, but we, and I can't recall if he said something about Saturdays or not, but they said, but hey, come on this one Saturday, we're gonna have breakfast, men's breakfast. They'd have that regularly, and why don't you come
Yep.
on in and we'll talk about it. And you kind of find a group, and but yeah, it was gonna be on Wednesday evenings. We'd all get together and we'd go through this thing. And but I knew that wasn't going to work for me. So I'll try this whole thing on Saturday, get some breakfast out of it, and see what they got. And then they mentioned that if you can't do Saturdays, yeah, we've got a group, and they meet on Saturday, and they're sitting over at this table over here. And I remember, and you guys, so I get up and from where I'm at, I was sitting at another table or something, and I get up and I walk over to this round table. I remember kind of over on the right side where you guys are sitting. And there were a handful of you there. Remember Tim, I think you were there. G was there, Vic was there, and I mentioned, so I said, hey, you guys are meeting on Saturdays. You got room for somebody? And you guys, boom, opened up. Grab a seat, sit down, let's talk. What's your name? Ken and Tim and Jerry, and you guys all introduce yourselves, and you brought me into that fold. And that was the moment that everything changed. And what's that?
What I remember actually more about that got thrust upon our group.
I remember you didn't know that until you guys mentioned that the other day, or just real recently.
Yeah, we had no desire to kind of be the overflow for people that couldn't come on Wednesdays. So we got voluntold kind of, hey, you guys, would you do this for six, 8 weeks or whatever it was? And like whatever got played or maybe they recorded it and it did, because weren't we playing like a video or something
Yeah,
from that?
yeah.
And so I remember it's like, okay, we could do this, I guess. This will work. I mean, it fits along with where we were going. And we were a little rudderless at that time, to be honest with you. And I remember Tim Elias, and when we were talking about to the group, hey guys, we're going to be this overflow group for a while. There's going to be guys coming, and we, they may not, probably won't stay. But Tim Eliason, he said it right there first, and it's been said ever since then. We have to make sure everybody has an equal place, equal seat at the table, that everybody feels welcome. And we all agreed to that. We all wanted that. We all wanted that whenever anybody came to the dudes, the Saturdudes, as we called ourselves then, that we wanted those people to feel welcomed, to feel like, hey, you're one of us. Day one, you're one of us. And we got we got good at that, I think, of just
I would disagree with that. And that I wouldn't say you got good. You were good. I had no clue, that, when I came, that wasn't the way, that the whole story behind that. I mean, you guys, I came up, I showed up, had no clue that you guys were any different than that at all. I mean, you showed up, and when other folks showed up there, it's like you're part of this group. I felt like a part of that group. I didn't talk very much in the beginning, I guess, but yeah, you guys made me 100% feel welcome in that. And I agree. I think that's something that, as far as our group goes, and yeah, Tim says it, and I think, and it's something that's so critical to the success of any group like that, is, that, I mean, we joke about initiation and all that, but there is none. You show up and you're a part of that group.
exactly.
You
Yeah.
know.
And
So
so um can you share about do you have any kind of early remembrances of, coming to that and being a part of that and then continuing on? It's like, it's like, why did you decide to continue on with being part of us?
I think there's one other thing that was going on, and it was other people's two other folks speaking into my life at that time, and it was at work, Joe, you've met Joe,
Mhm.
and another guy by the name of Mike, two great, phenomenal guys, and just, hungry for God. I remember them just talking more about God at work and their relationship and what they were doing and different things. And it's like I just felt this like, that I wish I had that. I wish I had that. And I mean, they by no means did they ever exclude me from it, but it's just like it was just this desire I need more of that discussion, having that discussion with other men than I do now. And I think that was one of the things that was driving me to want to become connected. And that there was that underlying sense within me when God said, you got to go today. It's in that time period where there's just this sense within me that I need to become connected. And there had been other times, but it was at this point that it was strong. And like I said, God was just like, you got to go today. And that's when that whole thing happened. I mean, he had a plan, and so glad I listened.
Yeah.
Um, because it's just, I mean, I don't know what it'd be like today without what we've got right now. But for me, it was the way in which you welcomed me into the group and made me feel a part of it. I think so many men just hunger for that. And I want to be accepted so much. We've gone through, and learned so much about how we walk through our life, you know, responding to others, behaving and putting up a front, being a poser so that we can be accepted. I just want to be accepted and part of another group. And I know, and for me, you guys, it was there. And there was no, there's never, and that's the funny thing is there's never been any pretense or thinking that one of the things that before really connecting with the dudes, if you kind of look back in my growing up, I mean, it's kind of growing up. I got all my buddies. We're all hanging out together. There was a period where I kind of got booted out. Buddy and I got in a fight, and they all hung out with everybody else. I kind of was on my own. We got back together, patched things up, and so we go along. And that's a group of men that young men, they hung out, went through school together, hung out afterwards, met some other folks. And then like you get married, I go to college, and that kind of evaporates and I'm left with nothing. And then I just kind of and you get into work and all of a sudden that new community is work. Or you have the family and the kids, and all of a sudden it's all sorts of different events at the sports events or the school events, and you got the other parents, you got the birthdays, and you have this other community that you're kind of hanging out with. To be honest, it was so superficial. Those are so superficial communities, in the sense that I didn't know anybody. I really didn't know who these people were. I mean, we hung out, we know what we other did, but it was not. I mean, it was just, there's no better word than just it was superficial. But when I met you guys, there was nothing superficial, nothing. Um, you guys talked about life. You guys talked about and got into, waded into that water together. It was, and I think I've explained it before. The idea of empathy being that, it's one thing to stand, the description that was given to me is that there's a pit and there's somebody down in there who's really struggling. You look down and you're like, yeah, it sucks to be you down there, doesn't it? And then there's empathy, and that's when you jump in the pit.
Yeah.
Every one of you guys, you jump in the pit. You jump down in there with everybody else when they're struggling, and you rally around them, and you don't just, it's not just words, but it's actions. I mean, before I got involved, when with one of our brothers, and he had, some stuff goes on with his wife, and everybody shows up. Middle of the evening, everybody stops what they're doing, runs over to take care of him, as they've got some emergencies going on, helping out with the kids and everything else. And it's just like, I mean, that's not superficial. And there was, like I said, there was no pretense whatsoever when I got there that, that wasn't available for me. In fact, it was this summer you guys did it. So yeah, that last summer was just, that was a rough year. But I remember just that, I fly to St. Louis to no Nashville, have to turn right around because of that medical emergency at home. I got, all I can do is get to Portland, and then maybe take a flight in the morning. You can catch wind of it. I don't even talk to you, you know, and Tim's there visiting, and you guys decide somehow catch wind of this, and you guys decide I'm going to go to Portland. We'll pick up Jim. I didn't ask. I didn't ask you to do that.
I think we were
You
at,
guys,
I
you
think we were
guys show
at
up at
dinner.
midnight
Yeah.
in Portland.
We were at dinner, and I think our wives got I think they got a text from Kareen and just saying what's going on. And Tim and I are looking at each other. It's like, we'll go get him. Well, it's like, come on. We could make him sit down there for a night and then fly up in the morning. It's like, we'll just go get you now. And we wound up reaching out to you and wound up, you know,
Oh,
took the
oh,
ladies
yeah,
back home and drove down, came and got you middle
I
of the
know.
night.
Yeah, I mean, you guys literally showed up I landed right about midnight. You picked me up and we drove home. I think we got home, what is about 2.5 to get home about 2:30 or so.
Yeah.
I, that's what you guys do. That's what you did. And there was never, ever any, like I said, there was never, ever any pretense when I first showed up that, there was nothing, that it was any different. And that's the thing that I think that just is so special about this group, and what we have. And it's so important. And that's, so when I get started when I first show up and I start going into it, I mean, that's the sense that I got. It hasn't changed. Hasn't changed one little bit.
I can tell you that as I think about that, and I remember it's the way I felt then. I know Tim and I both felt this way. We felt blessed that we got to go do it. We were thrilled, right? We were just stoked that we could come to your rescue and come and get you. It was a blessing for us to to be able to go do that. It was, you know,
And
it was awesome.
yeah, and it's, those are the things is, and I think, and so it's, there was a hunger. So there was such a hunger in me after, not quickly after not very long after I started, that I had to go. I had to be with this group. That this was different. It wasn't, and I'm not talking like within a few months. I'm talking like within a couple of weeks. I'm committed. And it's one of those things where, and I said earlier, it's like life gets in the way. Life gets in the way because I allowed it. I allowed it to get in the way. And I remember thinking, it's like, I got a lot of stuff to do on Saturdays. I mean, we all do, right? We take, I mean, be honest, we take about 3 hours by the time we get up, go in, have our meeting and leave. That's 3 hours of my Saturday. The best 3 hours of my week. The best 3 hours of my week, you know. And it was one of those things where it's like those things that I had filled my Saturdays with weren't as important anymore, you know. Um,
Yeah, you got to,
and
to say yes to something like this, you have to say no to other stuff, right?
yeah,
And you would think that, a Saturday morning for guys, it's, it's our weekend, right? And a lot of times you want to get your stuff done then and get it over with and relax and stuff. And we don't do that. We get up and we get together and it's been going. We just realized the other day that it's been 17 years from the beginning of it and didn't realize it'd been, quite that long and stuff. And so it's just feel the same way. If I'm home, I go. I just
yeah,
go. And then sometimes, if I'm gone and if any of us are gone, we remote in. If we
Right.
can, if we can, we'll remote in. And sometimes I've remoted in just to when I'm gone, just to say hi, hey guys, hi, and I can't hang out, but just want to let you know, uh, I'm thinking of you and praying for you and stuff like that. That's
Well, I
it's
like with this past weekend, what Chris, one of the guys, Chris, he's
that
not
was
there. He shows up on the screen. And it's like, oh, he must be going someplace. No, he just didn't want to miss it because he was running late. So he zooms in on his way in.
yeah, oh yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like, I can't miss it, It's like but that is it's just for me and Vic's, he used to say it's like, man, this is the thing that fills me up every week. It's like refueling my gas tank.
yeah.
And
And
um
and the thing is that, at a certain level, this becomes our church, our our brotherhood, right? In that there's something different about, go to church, hear a good sermon is great. But the thing is, when you are sitting with somebody and they're talking about something bad they're going through or something good that God has done in their life, and they pour their heart out about it one way or another, and you go through that with them, that impacts you completely different. And it causes you to change. When you're doing it around Christ, when you're doing it Christ's way and you're sharing those things, it makes us different people. And you don't have to say a word to change. You can be sitting there a lot of times. You'll we'll go to dudes and not say hardly anything, but yet feel like your tank has been filled massively by the discussion that's maybe going on by somebody else or a few other people, that you're just sitting there and taking it in.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, there are times where it's like, yeah, you don't say anything, but yet, yeah, there is and a lot of it is, and I think it's true for a lot of men. You go through life and you just think, man, you think you're the only one going through whatever it is, something at work, something with a family, something with the kids. It's like, man, I've just screwed this whole thing up. I can't believe. And you find out, guess what? Somebody else is going through it. I mean, it's like, and you learn from it. And you can be there, and that's, a lot of it is, it's words of encouragement, words of it, and the nice thing is there are times when advice has been given. Um, but I think kind of go back to, the more so when those issues have come up, it's a little bit more of the Paul Tripp issue. And it's like, maybe you ought to be looking inside, a lot of times it's like, it is stop. That person may not be so much the problem. How are you dealing with it? Are you, it's kind of the old, sometimes there is some of that finger pointing, and it's all done in love, but it's, and that's, and yeah, I need that at times. I need that, it's like, like I said, Paul Tripp, it's like, you're the problem. Um, and that's all I can do is change myself. And I, it's just, and that's the one thing that would, kind of in this walk, the impact that it's had, that this group has had in my walk, um, is visible to others. I look at my kids have told me, that, man, you are different today. You are totally different than who you were, 5, 10 years. I've been here now 11 years, but I think even after 2, 3 years, they're like, yeah, you're not the same guy. You're different, you know. I mean, just, and it's just how um it's just my relationship with God is so much different today than it ever could have been without this group, and that's and we talk about transformation, and there really wasn't, and honestly, there was no relationship with God. Yeah, I knew of him. I knew what I should do. Was I saved? Yeah, I was saved. And that's where it ended. And there was so much more that he wanted for us. and he wants, and it's like, and so this group, through it, he's transformed my life in so
100%.
many different ways.
Yeah. And I totally agree. Totally agree. And that's such a great share because I mean, all of us have gone to church, and it's not like church is not important and that kind of thing, but what causes character growth and character transformation and personal transformation in Christ is being in community, being connected, being together, going through the good, going through the bad, talking about it, jumping in that pit. That's such a great way you put that. Jumping in the pit,
Yeah,
and just it's like, hey, let's just go jump in this pit together and grieve together, or deal with what you're dealing with together, or be in joy together because of something good that's happening, right? And all of those things, no matter what they are, in some fashion, when we jump in that pit together and experience it together and share life and be transparent, causes us to grow,
yeah,
causes growth like no sermon can. Like
yeah,
when a sermon's lived out, I guess that's what it is, right? When you see it lived out, or when you see somebody repentant because they didn't live it out, that they feel bad that they didn't live it out. They knew that that they should have done something. I've been there a lot where I've came in and talked about I didn't live it out. I failed. But there's something then really healthy about saying that you failed and being accepted by these guys that go, well, we still love you. Right. Or no condemnation is and no judgment, right?
no, no. I mean, it's in the transformation, you talk about that. Oh, one of the best stories. I love it. And Phil's no longer with us, the original Phil. We got a new Phil,
Yeah.
but the original Phil's no longer with us. When that guy showed up, and he was not a hugger. When he was done, he was a hugger. And B, he walks up and he's pissed off at God. He was so angry with God. And gosh, just to watch him and that was, it's like just let him open up and to talk about his story and where his struggles were and go through it and then to speak into his life, ask the questions and to discuss it and to speak into his life and to see that change of like, wow, you know, that anger with God change into just a desire and a hunger for God.
Yeah.
It was just, and to see that, towards the end of his life was just, that's one of my favorite stories. Is just, I'll never forget Phil. He was such a tremendous guy, and to see the impact that God had on him through the group was just terrific.
It was. It was. I mean, he was an angry old man,
Yeah.
and that I will just say was saved, and he wound up coming into this really sweetheart of a guy that loved God and loved us, and just just had we just saw it before us, this beautiful transformation.
Oh, yeah. It was awesome,
Yeah.
and there are other stories like that, just where, we can, just through the, the things that we go through and can support one another on. I mean, other guys have done it as well, and supporting one another as we're going through stuff. So to me, it's such a, like I said, it's just such a transformative process. And without a community, that it does not happen. You cannot do it on your own. I don't, I don't know, somebody may disagree with me, but in my mind, this never would have happened to me had it not been for this group.
I totally agree. I 100% agree. I became a Christian in my late 20s, and I look at my growth, my personal character change kind of as a growth as a person, and I grew, but I grew exponentially when I started becoming part of this group
Oh yeah.
and being in community and being committed to these guys and being committed to loving them and them being love, me experiencing their love, and and seeing God in shoe leather, right? And just everything that you go through of just being open and transparent, being prayed for and praying for another guy, and jumping into someone else's life that needs it, and another guy jumping into my life when I need it, and just what that does for you. It's just it and when you do it all around Christ, when you do it, when you're trying to do it his way and the way that the Bible is calling us to do it, it's just transform. You can't help but change. You just can't.
No, no, you can't. I mean, there are, there are so many different, I don't know, want to say tools, but just so many different ways in which I've learned um, that have been transformed. I mean, it's, the whole thing when we've done Eldridge quite a bit, and, we went to boot camp. You went to boot camp with me, didn't you? When it was you, Dean, me, Vic,
That
Joe.
that was
Did you?
that wasn't a boot camp. That was a what was that? That was the thing in Colorado Springs, right?
No, that was different. That was with G. Maybe you didn't go to boot camp with me. Vic
Yeah,
went,
so
Joe
I
went,
went to
Dean
boot
went.
camp. I went to a boot basic and advanced, and I did them both with Dean.
Okay,
And
this is
I yeah, and I went with the Men of the Mountain group we called ourselves, from the guys from Seattle area.
okay. No, but I mean, but that, and it just, the when we talk about, and then we're going through now, but we, talk about some of the language that we speak, and how to, um, the lies that are spoken to us as you go through life about who you are, and that, and then, and how you live into those lies. Um, I mean, and you don't even know it, and how you do it. But it was, it's through, it's again through community, you start to realize, as you start, we've walked through this, start to realize, look, at that isn't who I am. That isn't, and just the process of taking it to God and walking it through, walking through it with Him, and um and just the transformation because of that. I mean, one of the things I one of the things I never could get angry with God. And it was only through, going through this where it's like, it's okay. Remember, we talked about that. It's like, I mean, David, go read a psalm and you'll see David's pissed off,
Yeah.
you know, and everything. And it's like, it's okay. He's got big shoulders. And there have been a couple times where I've just, you know, it just, something is, and I talked about, um, like with Brianna, I buried it, and there was a lot of things I should have dealt with, and um, I was very angry at God. Didn't really realize it, um, but I remember sitting down one day and it just hit me like, I was driving home and all of a sudden I broke down, and I'm not quite sure why. I don't think I was sure at that moment either. But I got home, Karen wasn't around. And because and I remember sitting down and just so angry at God for having gone through what I did, and ultimately having to make a decision whether she lived or died, our daughter lived or died, and so angry that he had not prepared me for that. I had no clue. I'm 30 years old. Am I 30? Was I 30? Yeah. Yeah, I was 30, almost 30, 29 years old. I got no clue what I'm doing. None. I'm not prepared. And I got nobody. The church spoke into my lives, yeah, but there was nobody telling me what to do. It's like, here you go. not figure it out. And I was just so angry at God for having done that. But he walked me through that and just and I can't even tell you what it was. I've journaled about it a bunch. I'd probably go look it up, but just the that anger, that hurt and everything, it took it away. That was such a huge load off of me, you know. Um, Being able to come to him and to talk to him about it. And such and probably not making a lot of sense, but in just such a almost just a fit one-on-one conversation with him that I could not have done alone, or done without you guys showing me and teaching me and talking into my life about what it looks like to follow God, what it looks like to have that relationship with him, and allowing myself to sit down and get dirty in that conversation, and just dig into an ugly mess and to bring it up to him. Man, I didn't know how to do that. But it's like he was there for me. He carried me through that, just like he did the first time. And he spoke into my life in that moment and just took so much pain away from me in that moment. And honestly, it's like, I'm good. I said, I'm probably not doing a great job of explaining it, but it's one of those things where had it not been for this group of men, and him working through you guys and showing me what that walk looks like, I'd still probably be dealing with all of that crud in my life, and not confronting it. And boy, I don't want to go back there at 100%. That's my biggest fear. If you were ever to sit and say, what's your biggest fear? Not being near God. 100%. I'm terrified of not being around God.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll think about that time. It's like, man, there's no way I want to walk away from this. So, but like I said, it's those are the things that we're just talk about transformation and just the different things. And you don't even know how you speak into somebody's life, but you do, you know, and,
Well, Jim,
slow
I have
bit
to
by bit.
say, you're one of the better voices in that group now. You're speaking into other guys' lives all the time by what you say, by what you share, by what you bring to the table. You're you're a sage in that room, man. You're a sage to those guys. You're bringing so much wisdom to the table. And so, you're a great voice of God to a lot of us in that room now, and I want you to know we appreciate it.
I appreciate that, but I mean, to me, I, I think, I forget, somebody said something the other day. I think it was Matt said something. I can't remember what it was, but I got angry. Um, because he'd said something that wasn't true about himself. I don't know what it was. Honestly, can't remember it. And it was just, and there are times where it's like, God just is like, no, that's not right. Stand up and say it, speak into his life. And those times where it's like, I gotta listen to what I'm being told, you know? And Dean is the one who showed me that. Dean is, he's so good at speaking into people's lives,
Yep.
and listening to what God is telling him, to do and speaking up. But it's so important. There's so much growth. He's done that with me several times where it's like, but it means so much to me. When you do that, when you guys speak into our lives, or into my life, it just means so much to me. But it's those times where it's not me. It's just, following God and trying to, but again, I wouldn't know. I'll be honest, there's, some of the guys, Orlando's, great when it following him and listening. And, you know, it's been a long time, but I'm learning more and more through this process to hear his voice and to follow his lead. It's not easy. I mean, people talk about it all the time, and I'm like, you know, it's I usually realize after the fact where God's spoken into my life, where he's and so I'm really good at seeing that, kind of hindsight. But learning to respond in the moment when you're prompted is something that's um so I really enjoy it. I really, really, it's like when those times come, it's like, oh, you know, I'm actually hearing.
Yeah.
And that's part of the transformation. It's like, wow, there is something going on here.
Yeah. Yeah. When you hear the Holy Spirit lead you and you respond to it, right? It's like, oh, you are guiding me here to this place,
I know.
something to say or do or whatever. When you're used by God in that fashion, it is life-giving, and you want to give him the credit too, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's easy. It's easy for some reason to look back. At times, I don't realize that I'm being prompted, and I'll do something, and then I'm kind of like patting myself on the back, and it's like, no, Ken, that was me. Oh yeah, sorry. Thank you, God, for that.
But even in that, it's one of those things where I mean, this group keeps you humble. This group keeps you so humble.
Yeah.
Um, and just it's like it's not me. I mean, it's you know, it's you, God. And that's the other, that's my word for the year. It got me thinking is humble or subjection. Um, but it's the other thing that I think a community like this, as we grow together, and I think that's important to understand, is that we are all growing together and learning from one another. And it's just kind of a process for each and every one of us every week. But we learn, you know, we kind of learn a lot of the spiritual practices or ways of, and that's probably a good way of putting it, is just the spiritual practices. You guys taught me journaling. I love to journal. You're the one who kind of, prompted me for that because you're so, you're so good at it. But that's been a huge part of my growth. You brought up the whole one word program. Um, and that's another terrific, tool and practice that we use. Um, but it's just, and not everything works for everybody. We're all different. What works for me may not work for you.
Exactly.
Um, but it's this idea of, just, just this group of different guys from different backgrounds, different places, but just, you know, talking about the way in which we do things and the practices that we follow that help our growth, kind of show it's like, hey, yeah, I'll try it. It's not quite for me. I've tried that. And no, not at least not right now. But I mean, that's the other thing. It's just been a huge, you know, um, part of the transformation is just learning from one another and how each other is growing, speaks into our lives as well. So
Yeah. So let's talk briefly about kind of what's going on right now in Dudes, because I think there's some really cool stuff that's been happening recently. I got reached, Harbor Covenant reached out to me today in an email wanting to point more men towards us
God's at work. That's all I can say is, man, God's doing something right now because it's like it's like every day. It seems like somebody new.
every day. And it's just like, oh my gosh, people are finding out about it. And it's just amazing to see all the guys that just are hungry for this and are finding out about it, and younger guys, right? Young
Oh,
guys, new guys in Christ. We got a guy in there that's only a few months into being a Christian, and he's just on fire.
yes.
And it's so cool as to, for a long time we've kind of been all that same age group, right? And now we're getting long in the tooth and a lot of gray hair, And then now all of a sudden, last year we've just been having a lot more younger guys coming along, and they come in and they're we're good at making them feel comfortable, right? And they plug in. They plug in and like are sharing and being a part of it, and you can tell they want to be they're engaged in the process.
Yeah. And that's something that, has been, I don't want a lot of our hearts is reaching. It's like, I, I wish I'd have had this when I was, a lot younger and not figuring it out at 50, you
Yeah,
know, would have been a whole lot easier. I'm so thankful, it's like, and God's timing is his timing.
it's timing.
But um, it's like and it's like if you could just show these younger men, you know, that there's a different way that you know, and uh and what's really neat about this is that some of the younger men with families, it's that period where it's like, it's like I can't do this. I got a lot of other things with the family. And it's like these guys are making time. These guys are making time to do it, which is just so exciting to see. I remember talking to them about it. It's like, it's just understand, you got a lot of kids, they do take time. And it's like, I know, but I need to make time for this,
Yeah.
which is phenomenal. That's so terrific to see because I think, it's we can get sucked into that. I don't have time. I got so many other things and it's like, well, it's difficult. And I'll say it's like, it was easy for me because when I found it's like, yeah, the kids were kind of, let's see, probably just, I mean, they were just getting out of high school or just gotten out of high school. So they really were kind of on their own thing. So it was a little easy for me, and to me, it's, is there a way that you can make this work, And it doesn't mean it doesn't have to be Saturdays. I mean, it could be, get together, any day. And we do, there's some of us that, meet other days of the week as well and get together and do that. And that's the other thing we really haven't even touched on is that community that we have. It's not one that just happens on one day a week, but it's, they're text messaging back and forth throughout the week. There's getting together other times of the week. Um, and other events. Some guys, love going golfing and they'll go out and golf together. And so there are other things that go on throughout. It's not just, the community doesn't happen on one day at
Right.
3 hours a week. It's community throughout the week. If you have a question on something, this or that, man, call them up, you know, and
Well, and the thing is, what I love too, to that point, is that some of these new guys that have come into the group, they're going and having coffee together. They're connecting up. There's all these different things that are happening where stuff is happening outside. This is important to do life together. For a while there was a group of us that were brewing beer together for a couple 3 years, right? I mean, it's whatever, right? And so it's just share life together, do it, and be connected, stay connected, and know that, you know if you woke up in the middle of the night and you needed friends, that I've got a group of friends that are 24/7. I have 24/7 access to. I love telling the dudes, when I'm talking to them, it's like, especially these new guys, look, you got 24/7 access to me, man. You know, Y- feel free, that's what this is about. We're here for each other, and really mean it, right? And really, be there for each other. So, yeah,
no, yeah, I mean, that's one thing. Yeah, it's not just one day a week. It's, doing, you know, being involved in each other's lives, not
yeah,
just on a Saturday or whatever day of the week it
right.
is.
Yep.
You know, I understand where you're going. You're taking off and going this trip or here for work or whatever. Know what's going on in your life. Um, yeah, and then sit down and grab some dinner together, have a beer together, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not unusual for you and me to get together on Mondays when our wives get together, and you and I
Yeah,
are going to go hang out together. So,
yeah. So no, it's like I said, it's I can't. can't say enough about, and that's it. And I don't know if people quite understand um the I sometimes have a tough time explaining it, or at least I think I do. Just the strong desire and the the life, I guess the best way of saying it, the life that God brings into our lives um, through this, and how it is the change in who I was to who I am is so extreme and so different and like I said, the only word come to mind, the words that come to my mind is just life-giving, and it's tough to put that into it's I don't know if people get that.
Right.
I
How do
don't
you,
know.
how,
I don't know else to say it, but it's just like it is something that I crave. It's kind of like on my early in the morning. Like I said, I get up early, I sit down, and I just want to sit and spend some time with God. And the more I get into this, and I know some folks are like, yeah, that doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun to me. And I can't explain it. I can't explain that, you know, other than to say I've fallen in love with him. And I wasn't before. I mean, I knew him, I loved him, but there was not a relationship. There was a time I had a dream one night that he gave me, that God gave me, and it was just I remember writing about it and journaling about it the next day. And it's one I kept. I did not put it in a journal. I put it on a piece of paper and I put it in every journal. Every time it's new, it gets shoved in there. And it was just this time of he just showed me this time of yeah, it's like it was this dream. I'm walking and there's this person beside me. And it was just so it's like I just want to be by you. We're just walking. And and it was just God showing me it's like, man, this is us. I'm right here beside you. And just this overwhelming desire just to sit and be with him. And I mean, it's like, wow, it's just amazing. And so when I sit and say, it's like, man, it is life changing. And people, a lot of people think, say, yeah, I just don't get it. And it's like, yeah, you may not until you experience it.
yeah. Yep.
I don't know about it to me, but I can't, I just feel like there's a part of it that I cannot explain, but it is so amazing. And what, that that relationship that is built through community, that relationship with God is that built through the community of men together is, you know, I can't explain it, what it's like, but I can tell you it works.
And I can tell you I think every man in their heart is searching for that. I think they're searching for it because that hole that only God can fill, and part of that hole is being connected to other men in community. I'm convinced of it. And, I think a lot of men try to find it in bars or in golf courses or, at work or whatever. And it's unrewarding. And when you're part of a community of people that are men that are following Christ, that you're trying to figure out how to do life the way Christ wants us to do it, it is phenomenal. It is life, like you said, it's life-giving. It is, and it's hard to describe, but I think so few men experiences, but so many men, when they look in their heart, they know they need it. They know they need this desperately.
If I look back prior to joining the dudes in that time period where there was just this kind of urge in me, this sense in me that I needed to get involved, that's what it was searching for. Had no clue. Had no clue what I was looking for, other than I had this urge that I need to get involved in with a group of men. Not even, it was more so just with the church, but um in a different sense. But like I said, there's just this urge, this sense within me that there's something missing. And this men's group, you know, has led me to, and I'll say it's not about it's the men's group is a way is kind of a vehicle to, that relationship with God.
Yeah. 100%.
And it's not, I mean, as much as I like the dudes, it's not about the dudes, it's not. It's not about the dudes, it's about God,
Yes.
and what he wants for us, and he wants that relationship with us so much, you know. But he wants us. I mean, go back and look at the Bible. I mean, that whole Bema project thing is just turning my world upside down right now. I'm learning so much more. Anybody watches it, go watch the Bema podcast, BEMA. It's like that thing is just that
Yeah.
just it just changed my. It just added so much more depth to my understanding of who God is and what he wants from us and what he desires and who the type of person he wants us to become. I mean, that whole thing, what was it? Um, this week was really convicting. There are other times where it's like, man, I got a lot of growing to do. But it's like you look at it, it's like, yeah, but you know what? That's what I want to become. That's what I want to become, like those people that God was searching for his people. It's like, wow, wouldn't that be awesome? And it's like, and that's what we're working towards. But it's to me, um, but it's yeah, it's not about the men's group. The men's group is a way, the ultimate end goal is that relationship with God and being transformed more into Christ likeness. And the men's group, this community of men is a vehicle for that.
It's the facilitator. That's
Yeah.
exactly correct. And in that, what happens is that as we become closer to him,
Yes.
we're we're becoming closer to each other too. You can tell, you can feel how that works, right? Because as you get drawn to him, you get drawn to each other too through that process. It's
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's incredible. And I agree completely with the Bema thing. I love the learning that we're doing with that, and so grateful uh, uh, that that got introduced to the dudes um, uh, through John, and it's just been phenomenal and shocking because I've been a guy that's listened to a lot of books and a lot of podcasts, a lot about the Bible and stuff, and I'm seeing things and hearing things for the first time that I've never known, and just the beauty and the complexity of the Bible. It's just seeing it kind of through a new lens for me as to how it's being presented through that.
Yeah. I mean, to me, there was a podcast I was listening to. I think Matt brought it up, the one with N.T. Wright and Tyler Staton
Mhm.
and Mackey. But they were talking, but and I start to see it more often as I'm listening to them talk about it, and they're getting into some deep stuff. But I start to pick up bits and pieces of what um, I'm learning in the whole Bema thing. But the Bema project explains it in such a way that it's like you're just picking at the edge. So much of when I'm seeing there, John has a great explanation. It's like, man, what we've learned is kind of the top surface of the iceberg. There's so much underneath when you start to
Mhm.
learn what the Jewish perspective on the God's word is and how it was written, why it was written. And it's just like, then you start to understand that's what these guys are talking about. Whether they know it and understand that part of it, the Bible still speaks about. You can still get that from the top, that top
Sure.
10% that you see.
Yeah.
It doesn't change that. But once you start to understand that stuff that's below the surface, it's like, oh wow. Then to me, I'm a little thick, and that's a big picture. It's like, whoa, now I get it.
Yeah.
So
100%.
yeah, so no, but again, without a community, no.
Yeah.
Would I have stumbled on it? Maybe, but but it's something that, now we can sit and talk about and go on and
Yeah.
on about.
Absolutely. Yeah. I wound up uh Tuesday had to drive up to Ferndale at 5 hours in the car,
So,
and I filled uh, about 3 of those hours with the Bema stuff and going over it for the second time. I go over this stuff like for me, it's been crazy. I go over it because some of these podcasts I've gone over 3 times because I'm like, I didn't still get all that. I got to go back again.
Yeah,
Love it.
I know, it's um but it's to me there's just, and that's the one thing that, the other thing that God set in my heart in this whole thing is just I want to know him better.
Yeah.
I want to know him so much better than I do now. And and I think, it's there's just a hunger. If there's any hunger within me, I mean, it's about I want to know him better.
Yeah, 100%.
Um,
And it's funny, the more we get to know him and the better relationship, and as thrilling as that is, you always keep finding that there is the depths of that relationship are unending.
yeah,
There's just more and more and more and more.
yeah. No, it's so good. Like I said, we could just have a podcast on that
Yeah, really.
and go
A-
on about that. But
Absolutely. Well, uh, Jim, is there anything else that you want to share that maybe we didn't talk about that's kind of on your heart that regarding any of this?
I mean, I could go on, but I think I'd say not really. I mean, to me though, the one thing I'd get, if the goal, and I know your goal, in this is to reach other men and to show them how important that community is and to find a good community of men that you can grow together in Christ, and I can't reiterate enough how much this group has changed my life. And the one thing I will say is, um, if we're talking about it, I know you're talking about getting in another venture of talking about it in other ways, but is I think it's a word that just came to my mind is sacred, and that wasn't where I was going to go though. But one of the things we talk about is that everything we talk about in the group stays in the group. It doesn't go anyplace else, and it's always been a safe place. But it's almost to me that word sacred that just popped in my head is it really is. It's a thing that we have to treat with respect. That it's God's working through it. If God's working through it, better treat it with respect and honor it for what it is. Um, if that makes sense. I mean, it's something, I don't, when we get together and we talk about stuff and we say, what's said in there stays in there, it's so critical. I
Mhm.
mean, to anything. Because I think what's so important about that is we can talk to one another. We can unload and talk about what's going on, in the nitty gritty of our life, and kind of bare our soul, if you will,
Yeah.
to one another. And you said it earlier, and feel safe, that we can do this. I mean, there have been some tough things brought up in this group, and but it's what's so beautiful is that the guys have felt comfortable to do that, and that it's I talk about those superficial groups that I was involved in earlier on, whether it be a community of other parents I'm hanging out with or work guys. No, I'm really I do not trust you guys to get down into that. And even some of the younger, when in my younger days and the guys I grew up with, no, no, not going to have it. But I think for it to work, it's got to be respected 100%. And of what's discussed, and you have to make it a safe place. And I think I think you can do that. I think we have
Yeah.
make it a safe place where men feel comfortable that they can talk about those things, because that's where a lot of the growth is at. It's not talking about the football game and how you blew it and you didn't pick the right team. It's what I did this week? I screwed up big time. And here's how. And then guys rallying around you and speaking into you, and being there. It's like, you know what? Just like God would. It's like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah.
There's no condemnation here. There's no shame. What an awesome thing to think about that. I mean, you can bring up some really dirty laundry. There's no shame. There's no shame in this group. So I think that's something that's never really think much about that, but it really is um, you know, we talk about consecrating our time to God when we're there, and that's, it's a special place. It's a very special place, and it needs to be treated as such.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Absolutely. It's uh I've came there many a time and shared that I had messed up about something. And sometimes too, what's amazing is I'll come and it's like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about this. And I'll be thinking that in my spirit. I don't want to talk about this. And God will prompt me. It's like, you need to talk about this, you know, and sure enough, and then sometimes you come and I've come where I'm thinking, I got nothing to talk about today, which is fine, right? I'm just here to, be part of the group. And all of a sudden, God's going, oh yeah, there is. Yeah, there's something. And all of a sudden he's prompting you on something else that you just never thought of. And then other times, yeah, you're just quiet. You're just listening. You're just taking in what's being said and what's being shared. And and yet you feel blessed and because of it, or you're praying over somebody, or just wherever the spirit takes us. And
well,
that's
and that's
about it.
that's the that's something that's really important, and I struggle with it. So, when we meet, I've kind of been putting together, hey, what are we going to do? I come prepared to what we're going to discuss about, have kind of a video set up or something,
Yeah.
and that. And I'm the kind of like, I mean, it's like we got to schedule, guys. And so, let's get a move on here. And I catch myself doing that, and it's like, no, stop. It wasn't this week. I don't know. I had to leave early this week, but last week, we started going off in a different direction. I think it was the past 2 weeks.
Yep. Past
Have a
2 weeks.
video, have a video set up, ready to kind of talk
Ready to
about,
go.
and all of a sudden somebody speaks up, and I'll be honest that there are times where I'm like, yeah, guys, let's go. Come on, wrap it up. And I'm embarrassed. I'm sorry, guys, I do that. In the back of my head, I'm like, but it's like, you know what? At the end of the day, we didn't get into it, and it's like, oh, I'm so glad we didn't, because this was so awesome, and it's allowing that time and that space for something different to happen. Because God, it's not my plan, it's not my place, it's not, you know, it's God's place, and you have to allow Him to work in it and give
Yeah.
give Him the space to do it, and not fill it with something else that you think you need to be doing.
Yep.
We don't. It's like that. I don't think we've ever done a Bible study, have we?
Well, initially, when dudes were first meeting, that's kind of how it started. It was around a Bible study, and it didn't really work, and it morphed from there really quickly.
But I
But
think that's the beauty of this thing. It's like what we've got. It's like, it's I think Greg Greg's comment is, just got to follow a wild goose.
yeah,
In that
yep,
spirit, you have to let it, you have to, if people are going to speak up, you have to give them the opportunity to
yeah,
speak until all is spoken.
yeah, yeah.
You know?
The best, I think, my favorite days at Dudes are when like been the last couple of weeks. We come, we're prepared, we're ready to play a next video in a series that we're doing, and we never get to it
Mm-mm.
because there's stuff that needs to be talked about. And those are some of my most favorite days when it just like God, you can just feel God's presence at work and you just feel him prompting guys, okay, we need to talk about this. This
Yeah.
this has got to be dealt with. And those days to me are the best because it's the Holy Spirit at its best prompting us to interact with each other um, and deal with some issues, deal with what we're talking about.
Yeah. And through it. I mean, throughout, through that, I mean, it's, there's growth that's going on,
Yeah, 100%.
transformation that's happening in people's lives. I mean, happens all the time. So, I mean, I think that's, it's, keep a loose grasp on what your plans are as you step into it.
Yeah.
You know,
And the thing
be
is
prepared, but
is I believe that that church has its place, right? To learn, to be taught Bible, that kind of stuff. But it's in community where it's lived out, or it's in community where we talk about how we didn't live it out
yeah,
and how that impacted us. And that has great impact on everybody in that community, especially when we talk about when we failed and 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 when we succeed. Both of those are equally transforming to the person that's sharing it and to the people that are receiving it and jumping in that pit with you.
yeah, yep. No, it's yeah, those are the great days. I mean, just some terrific conversations. Had no clue it was coming. None. you know. And it's so often, it is the case, somebody will bring it up, they'll go off, and all of a sudden you start to hear it's like how that story relates to your life and how, I can think about it, how that, and this is something that's like you have to be so careful about, but it's like, oh yeah, I've been there, or yeah, I'm going through it. And the caution is given to, just from a standpoint of allowing people that safe place to talk about their stuff, not making it about me, but listening to the other person, and allowing them to speak and say their story completely. And there's Tim has just taught me so much with that. It's like I love how he asks questions. That's one of that we could go on forever, but it's like he just he's taught, and he's come over and we've chatted here, you know outside of dudes, and he's talked to Carrie about some things, and it's asked he doesn't he just asks questions, and just like Christ did all the time. But it's like some will go on, and he'll just ask questions and prod more and more and facilitate that discussion through questions to them about this or that, kind of like you do here. But to me, that's, talk about that space being a safe place and a comfortable place and a place that, it's you kind of have to hold on loosely to what you think your plans are and let God work, what he will.
To that point, one of the things that I love about the group is that you can have a big group of guys there, and two guys might be interacting. We're listening to two guys just interact. One guy might be asking questions, the other guy might be responding to answering those questions or just sharing something. And it's amazing how different people can bring different aspects of that situation out in different ways. There's something beautiful that happens at times when you get a bunch of men involved in a conversation, and all of a sudden you're getting different perspective, different points of view, or someone else is asking a question of somebody, and all of a sudden you think, I would have never thought to ask that, or I would have, you can just see that there's just all this different engagement. And I sit there and go, that's such a brilliant question, or that's such a brilliant insight I would have never thought of on my own, but I got it. I get to experience that because it is a safe place, and people aren't afraid to ask the hard questions or to answer a hard, or to be open or vulnerable and share. And that, I get to be the recipient of that many times, and that recipient, as a recipient, I grow in Christ, I grow closer to him, I want him more, and I grow closer to the people that are around me. And I'm a better husband, and I'm a better father and better grandfather because of it.
So no, but yeah, it is. I think that's the other thing about, talking about how you do the groups is um something we could go on about for a while because it is. I don't think, given, you guys are the one who ran into Eldridge, and you've heard the comment before. It's like, you guys have been around how long? And you hear that, men's group, they kind of come and then they go, and I think it's it's not impossible, but it needs to be treated with respect, and it's got to be more than just, sitting around and studying a Bible. It's got about, it's about doing life together,
Yeah. It's
you know.
about doing that's, and we use that term a lot, right? Doing life together.
Right. And,
And
and for the sake of, transform your lives and building that relationship with Christ.
yeah.
100%,
And the reason I'm doing the podcast, and now I'm, as I've spoken this into the, now I'm going to speak it into the internet universe.
I didn't say
No,
it. I was hinting at it, but I wasn't going to say it.
I know we might as well just say it, in that I'm starting to write a book about this experience, and the intent of the book is the same intent for the podcast, is try to get guys excited about doing this kind of thing. Like, this is special. We know it's special, but I don't think this is lightning in a bottle by any stretch of the imagination, because I believe this is intention. This is the way God intended us to do it. And so, um, being in community and sharing life together, and once you start doing that, once you understand how life-giving it is, that it's easy to make a commitment to 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 a group of men, to a time to get together, to the to talking about life around Christ, and and how transformative it is. And the more you're transformed, and the more that you come to know, have a better relationship with Jesus and walk closer to him, you want more. It's just, it's natural. It's like, I want more. I want more. So yeah, I'm working on a book, and I feel like it's our book. He actually sent me uh, the first email that I asked for people to send me emails regarding sharing stories or what you think should go in it. And G sent me just a beautiful email today, and talk about what stuff should be shared. And so, I look at this as our book. This is ours. This is, you know, if we can somehow, through talking, through podcasting, through books, through whatever God calls us to do, and we can create other Saturdudes groups out there, man, that's eternal. That's stuff that's eternal stuff. And I want to do that. I want to hear about other men's groups getting started. I want to hear about other guys listening to this stupid little podcast and going, oh, I want that. I need that. I wrote it down. I've got something for you today. I think that should be a name of one of the chapters in the book. I've got something for you today. And what that was, I'm going to change your life, Jim. I'm
Yeah.
going to change your life. I've got something for you today.
Oh, and but that's what one of the things I love about you is that you do, you respond. You've talked about this podcast and you haven't given up on it. You heard it's like, this is something you needed to do, and it's, your love for, seeing other men is just so encouraging. And I love to see that. I mean, and you have such a hunger to do that and to do his will. I mean, that's something he's put within you. And you're chasing after that. That's awesome. I'm proud of you for doing that. Proud of you for doing his podcast. Continuing, yeah, who knows how many people it reaches. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's not up to us.
No,
Not up to us. He'll do what he wants to.
I'm just trying to respond
Yep.
to what he's asking me to do, and I'll tell you, as much as it doesn't make sense to me, asking, it doesn't make sense to me, but I'm trying to make myself available and I'm trying to do what I think he's asking me to do. And so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And like I said, this is not me. This is not about me. This is about him. This is about how can we share this special thing that we've experienced with other men so that they would experience it. Bottom line.
Yeah. No, agreed. Hey, you're doing an awesome job. You really are. I'm proud of you for it. So I'm excited to see that book.
Yeah.
I'll try and put something together for you. So
Well,
I got
I
some.
this was awesome. This was awesome. I mean, literally, as I'm sitting here thinking about this, I'm thinking, this is a great chapter. I've got something for you today. and 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 sharing your story right in there. And so that's super cool. So I'm just trying to figure out, different little chapters like that, right? Is to and God, I mean, since the day I spoke it a couple weeks ago to the dudes, it's just amazing how God has responded to it. Like I had to take the guts to say I was going to do it. And all of a sudden, he just is just creating doors, just opening doors and reminding me of stuff. Just, it's been absolutely insane. And so it's all a God thing. It's a total God thing.
Yeah. No, it's one of the things you guys have taught me, you know, and I'm still trying to work into it, live into it, but it's listening and responding. It's one thing to listen, it's one thing to hear, then you got to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you got to do it. And and you do, it's like this podcast, you're like, I don't know, you know, it's but you were just like, I'm going to do it. So, you did it, got it set up, you're learning, you know, and, uh, and so,
I'm over my skis, but I'm trying to keep from rolling down the hill.
right. So it's no, I'm just, yeah, like I said, that's one thing I really like about you or love about you is you really do, you listen, you got a heart for other men and, leading them in that way. So you're doing a great job.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Well, thank you. I appreciate we've been wanting to do this for a while, and I'm so grateful we got to do it tonight. We started when the sun was up, now the sun's set, and we've been doing this, we've been on for 2 hours together. So it's been an awesome interview. Thank you for sharing. You've been
Oh,
so
my pleasure.
open and transparent, and I knew you'd be that way, and that's why when you're such a great friend to me. I love you so much, man. I value you so much, and you know that. I think the world of you, and just grateful to have you in my life and share life with you, and get to do dudes together and other stuff together. You are a light in my life, and I want you to know that.
Thanks a lot. Thanks. I do appreciate it. It kind of goes the same way, that picture said a lot you brought up in the beginning. And it's like, I meant what I said, that those are my brothers.
Yeah,
It is, I never had brothers, two sisters, but I mean, you guys, I mean, it is, you know, um, you're my brothers. And that's it. Closest set of guys I've ever known. And, um, I wouldn't trade it for anything. So
awesome. Yeah, I agree 100%. I value that picture so much. It is just one of the most special pictures that I totally treasure, is that picture there. So
yeah. So,
awesome, man. Well, hey,
okay.
thank
Thank
you.
you for the opportunity.
Yeah,
And,
thank you for coming on. I really, really, really appreciate it, Jim.
I appreciate it as well. So listen, you take care and, see you Saturday.